You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I am your host, Steph, and today I'm going to be doing a little last-minute preview of the 49ers defense matchup against the Colt McCoy-led Arizona Cardinals. I meant to do this video a little sooner, but life's been a little hectic. You guys understand, hopefully. So doing this last minute, just a few hours before the game. And let's get right into it. First, let's talk about some of the injury news, happening before this game. Well, on the 49ers end, not too many players listed on the injury report, the final injury report before this game, which is quite frankly a breath of fresh air for this team, given how they've struggled with so many injuries in the first half of the season. Eric Armstead continues to be the one player who isn't on IR, who has been out for an extended period of time now with his foot and ankle injury. And it makes sense because with the type of injury that he has, when you go to elevation, that could somewhat impact, that injury a little bit. So, maybe it's a good idea that he doesn't play and rather have him ready for, the stretch of home games that are coming up. So on the other end, we have Samson Ebukam, who is also going to be questionable for this game, but I would expect that he plays. He did practice in limited fashion this week. So I have a feeling he's going to go after missing last week's game. So that's good news on the 49ers front. For the Cardinals, they have listed Zach Ertz, their tackle DJ Humphries, and their cornerback Byron Murphy as out. And for the questionables, we have Max Garcia, DeAndre Hopkins, and we have Kyler Murray with his hamstring as being questionable. But we've been hearing reports that Kyler Murray is going to be out for this game. And so not surprising on the Cardinals' part to take it up to the 11th hour and force the 49ers to prepare for both quarterbacks. But as of right now, what we know, the 49ers are going to be facing Colt McCoy. D'Amico Ryans earlier in the week mentioned the fact that at this point, the 49ers defense have faced both Colt McCoy and Kyler Murray. So it sounds like they were comfortable and they would be ready for whoever was going to be playing at quarterback for the Cardinals. It's going to be Colt McCoy. And I know what you're thinking. There's going to be some, fears because of the last time that the Cardinals played with Colt McCoy at quarterback. They kind of had their way with the 49ers, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. But, I can remind you right now, how that looked for this team. The last time the 49ers faced Colt McCoy, he was 22 of 26 for 249 yards and a passing touchdown. The Cardinals totaled 437 yards of offense in that game. James Conner accounted for most of the touchdowns scored. He had 173 total yards and 3 touchdowns. James Conner put on a masterclass against the 49ers the last time they played. Let's just call it what it is. It just was not the best performance from, the defense part. The Cardinals held the 49ers to 39 yards rushing as well, which obviously played a huge part in it. I have a feeling that number is going to be different this time around. They have Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, so I think things will be better this time for the 49ers, but obviously the last time that they played, it was not so pretty. And after the 49ers dropped this game, it was when the 49ers fell to 3-5. But we know what happened after that as well. Of course, we don't exactly want a repeat of that. At this point, I feel like the 49ers are on their way. They're on the up and up, after the up and down start of the season. And so we definitely don't want to lose this game. But here's what I think is the key to stopping Colt McCoy. First, you got to stop James Conner. As we saw there, Conner ran wild the last time these two teams played, and he had a good game last week against the Rams as well, which Colt McCoy, of course, did benefit from. So force the game squarely onto McCoy's shoulders and see what he can do. His average depth of target last week against the Rams was 6.1 yards. This defense should be able to keep everything in front of them. And as long as they tackle, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure the Cardinals are the worst team in the league in generating yards after the catch. So as long as this defense tackles, I think things should be good for the defense. This could be a big game for the linebackers and Talanoa Hufanga. Let's look at some interesting Arizona Cardinal stats that, I collected here. So the Cardinals, their offense is third in second half points per game. Pretty good. They are scoring an average of 13.3 points in the second half. They're 11th in red zone scoring percentage. They are 11th in first downs per game. They are 19th in total yards per game. So middle of the pack there. They're 19th in rushing yards per game, also middle of the pack. 26th in first half points per game. Notice the difference between the first half and the second half. So first half, they average 9.1 points in the first half of the season. And in the second half, they're averaging 13.3. So they are a second half team, something to look out for in this game. They're also 29th in third down conversion percentage. That is terrible. They are only converting 35% of their third downs. This is an opportunity for the defense to get off the field, right? In the games that the 49ers have lost, the defense have had difficulty getting off the field on third downs, kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Sometimes there's been penalties. Right here, with the Cardinals being 29th in third down conversion percentage, it's kind of they're gift wrapping, opportunities for the defense there. And so it's going to be important, especially given the fact that they're going to be playing in high elevation, high altitude. It's going to be important for this defense to stay fresh. How do you do that? Well, you force the Cardinals into 3-and-out situations. You get off the field after third downs. So something to keep an eye on in this one. And the Cardinals, lastly, they're fourth in interceptions thrown percentage with 1.5. I don't know if that's supposed to be percent. Yeah, percent. 1.5%, which, another thing to keep an eye on in this game. Well, let's see. Let's talk about the 49ers defense and how they match up against the Cardinals offensive line. And I will move myself so you guys can see. Hopefully you guys can see this pretty well. One thing I wanted to point out, Brandon Thorn, I don't know if you guys know who Brandon Thorn is, but he's an offensive line expert. If you guys know what Establish the Run is, establishtheRun.com, ran by, what's his name? Evan Silva and, I'm forgetting the other guy's name, but it's a huge fantasy football site. Anyway, every week, Brandon Thorn puts together a offensive line and defensive line ranking, and he calls out the biggest mismatches of the week because obviously for fantasy football like that's useful information for, running backs and quarterbacks and things like that. Anyway, so this week, he noted the 49ers defensive line and the Cardinals offensive line to be a huge mismatch this week. Let me tell you why. He has the 49ers defensive line ranked 9th, while the Cardinals offensive line is ranked 26th. Okay, and that's a ranking difference of minus 17. If you look at the Cardinals offensive line here, their tackles are their strength, but they are more vulnerable at the interior, especially their center and their right guard. And I would expect we see plenty of stunts from DeMeco Ryans in this game, try to get some favorable matchups, try to get Nick Bosa rushing from the interior, things like that. Another thing to keep an eye on in this game. Let me talk about James Conner really quick because I did mention him as really being one of the keys for this defense, being able to stop him. Last week against the Rams, he ran it 21 times for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 3 receptions for 17 yards. They're going to want to use him heavily in order to get Colt McCoy comfortable. He ran it 21 times last week. That's a pretty large amount. I mean, of course, they waived or they got rid of Benjamin. So James Conner is really like the only viable running back that they have at this point. So obviously he's going to get all of the carries. But 21 times, obviously with Colt McCoy at quarterback, it's an added emphasis to the run game and getting that going for them. And again, they're going to want to use him a lot to get Colt McCoy comfortable, get the pressure off of Colt McCoy. The good news is the 49ers defense against the run the last 3 weeks, they are allowing an average of, let's see here, an average of 73 yards per game. The 49ers defense, these last 3 weeks that they've played, have allowed an average of 73 yards per game. That is best in the NFL. On the season, 82.7 rushing yards per game. So, the way I see it, this should be a game where the 49ers are able to stop or at least limit what James Conner is able to do. And that in turn should make it easier for this defense to be able to defend against Colt McCoy. Because the last thing you want is for the Cardinals to have a balanced attack. It's just going to make that all the more easier for their offense and all the more harder on the defense. So something to keep an eye on. I really do feel like I like what the 49ers defense has been doing against the run these last few weeks. So I feel good about that matchup despite what James Conner did the last time that these two teams met. What's going on, Bryant? Glad you can make it. Quick reminder to everyone, make sure that you like this video if you have not yet. I appreciate all the love. So close to being able to monetize on YouTube. So anything you guys could do helps me out a lot. But let's talk about the Cardinals wide receivers. Let's look back here at the receivers that they have going up against the 49ers cornerbacks. Well, of course, they have DeAndre Hopkins. There was a lot of talk. He was dealing with a hamstring injury earlier in the week. He was a limited participant on Friday, but he's good to go for Monday. So he's going to be playing tonight. And since he has returned from his suspension, I must say, I just have to call out, like, he's had an insane target share. He's had at least 10 receptions in all but one of the 4 games he's played. In 4 games, he has 46 targets, 36 receptions, 396 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he's a huge part of their offense. And part of that, I mean, is because Hollywood Brown as well, has been out with injury. And so to have their wide receiver 1 back has helped as well. But, that just goes to show this insane target share, these insane numbers. He's a huge part of their offense. So stopping him as well is going to be very important. But I must say, I also feel good about this matchup because of what Charvarius Ward has been able to do lately. Ward has only allowed 58.5% of his targets to be caught. He has 7 pass breakups on the season. So I feel good about Charvarius Ward, what he could potentially do against DeAndre Hopkins and limiting him. The question is, okay, what about the other side of him? Because that's been the biggest question mark ever since Emmanuel Moseley went down. Diamador Lenore has been playing there as of late. He's allowing 78.6% of his targets to be caught, which is still pretty solid, but no pass breakups or interceptions this season. But since week 6, Diamador Lenore has been targeted a whole lot less, and his confidence, at least from what I can tell, his confidence seems to be improving, which, if you're a cornerback who has talent and you're also playing with confidence, you're cooking with gas. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's hitting a stride, and this game is going to be a real test. It's going to be a real test for him because seeing what Mooney Ward has been able to do, I expect the Cardinals to try to match up Hopkins with Diamador Lenore, line them up on the opposite end if they can, or they'll target Rondell Moore a little bit more on that side. So this is a test for Lenore, but I like what I've seen from Lenore the last couple weeks, and I would expect, and I hope, honestly, that he keeps that going. And because we've been seeing improvements every week since he's been playing on the outside. And so, again, with these receivers, that's going to be a big test. Of course, they also have AJ Green, who hasn't been a huge he hasn't been a huge contributor for the Cardinals so far this year. I mean, he's kind of up there in age, so it makes sense. But Hollywood Brown, though, he's not going to be playing in this game. There was some talk about him potentially returning because they did designate him to return from injured reserve, but he won't be activated for this one. So it's just that's kind of a good thing for the 49ers as well. All right, let's see. The other thing to keep in mind here, Zach Ertz, he's now out for the season for the Cardinals. He got hurt last week. And so this is potentially a huge loss for the Cardinals because, as you see here, some of the stats, Ertz has played 21 games with the Cardinals, and he has a stat line of 103 catches for 980 yards and 7 touchdowns. And the stats for the Cardinals tight ends that they've had that haven't been Zach Ertz the last 5 seasons hasn't been great. They haven't really had anyone who has compared to the production that Zach Ertz has given them. So obviously that's a blow to their offense as well, which I don't think can be overstated. I feel like I'm not seeing enough people bring this up as like something that can impact this game. The Cardinals did activate tight end Max Williams from injured reserve ahead of today's game, and I would expect him, as well as a rookie tight end Trey McBride, to get extra opportunities with Zach Ertz out. But of course, Trey McBride, for the most part, has been kind of a question mark because we haven't seen too much of him. He's very talented player coming out of college. I was a big fan of him, in the whole draft process and all things like that. But for whatever reason, he hasn't gotten a whole lot of playing time with the Cardinals. And again, like with the suspension to Hopkins, and with the injuries to Hollywood Brown, like you would think that they'd want to mix him in a little bit, but they surprisingly have not as much as you would think. So maybe that's an indication of how they feel about McBride right now. Maybe they don't feel he's quite ready to take on that, expanded role, and hence Max Williams being activated. I mean, we've seen Max Williams before. He has been with the Cardinals for a few years now. So, but definitely, none of those guys are Zach Ertz, right? So from the Cardinals standpoint, I think it's a huge loss and just another thing to consider in this game. What's going on, Javier? Thank you for joining the live. Make sure you guys like this video. I appreciate it. But you know what? I've seen a lot of fans this week be worried about this matchup because of how the 49ers defense performed the last time that they faced the Cardinals. So, like, if you were to ask me, is it fair to be concerned? I would simply say yes and no. I would say yes because anything can happen, and the 49ers have been known to have those weird, uncharacteristic games where they play down to their opponent, and, this could potentially be one of those games. But I would also say no because if you look at this tweet, and for the audio listeners, I'll just read it out for you. This tweet by Akash. He said, starting secondary for the 49ers in 2021 versus Colt McCoy. Emmanuel Mosley, Josh Norman, Drake Kirkpatrick, Tavon Wilson, Talanoa Hufanga. Starting secondary for the 49ers today versus Colt McCoy. Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, and Tashawn Gibson. This is a huge difference in talent, I mean, Josh Norman, Drake Kirkpatrick, like what? They're not starting, I don't think, for any NFL team at the moment, pretty sure. So they were starting last year, and it kind of is not so surprising when you look at who started and what the Cardinals were able to do. Again, like the Cardinals do have a lot of firepower on their offense, but that defense that played against Colt McCoy last season was nothing compared to the defense they have now, even with some of the injuries that they faced. So I think that's something to consider in this game. This tweet made me feel better about the matchup, okay? And I hope it does for you guys as well, because I would expect an entirely different game. Talanoa Hufanga is an entirely different player than he was last season. You know, Hufanga had some great plays last season where you know that he is like a good player, and he showed us some flashes, but this season, like, he really took it to a whole nother level. And just to show you guys this tweet from Jordan, I'll read it off for the audio listeners. He says, Talanoa Hufanga's ranks among NFL safeties this season. Passer rating when targeted, 43. That's the passer rating when Talanoa Hufanga is targeted, 43. That's second in the NFL. Now, as far as stops, 20th. He has 20 stops this season. That ranks for third among safeties in the NFL. Interceptions, he has 4. That is tied for second among safeties in the NFL. Pass breakups, he has 4. That's tied for fourth among safeties. Hufanga is the only safety in the NFL this season to rank in the top 5 in each of these categories. That is huge. And you know, we've seen this growth with our own 2 eyes, and so I know it's not surprising for us to look at these stats and see them. But you know, when you look at the player that he was last year compared to now, I mean, it's like night and day. And so I think that's another thing that not a lot of people are really mentioning. You know, the fact that, yeah, Hufanga was part of that defense last season when they played against Colt McCoy, but he's an entirely different player now. And so I feel good about, you know, what this defense should look like tonight against this Cardinals team. Javier here says, I feel that Hufanga still needs to work on speed. Might be me, but I don't know. One thing about Hufanga, I think the knock on him coming out of college was that he's not like the most athletically gifted player. And so that's his limitation. Every player has like a limitation or so, right? That would be the fact that he isn't super fast. But one thing that, you know, kind of helps him bridge that gap between, you know, not being the most physically gifted to like how he's playing is the fact that his instincts are so quick. Like he's able to call out a play in his head. Like you can see it, how quickly he's able to react to certain plays and what he's seen and just attack. And so he's a lot smarter at that this year than he was last season. And yeah, I don't think it's just you know, speed. I don't know if he's going to get any faster at this point, but you know, the recognition of a play and being able to attack, like, that's something he has improved on. Sure. I mean, I'm sure that can probably improve to an extent even still, but yeah, I mean, Hufanga has been on another level this year. So I feel good about that. You know, another thing that goes in the 49ers' favor in this game is the fact that the Cardinals are, for the most part, an undisciplined team. And if you look at these stats here, 31st in penalties per game this season. In their last 3 games, they rank 32nd in penalties. So they are terrible. And if there's a team that's going to shoot themselves in the foot, it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. So this is an opportunity for the 49ers to, you know, exploit, and, you know, they're going to make mistakes. So another plus for the 49ers and this matchup. So here's simply what I'm going to say about this matchup. The 49ers should be able to handle business, and they are the better team. Like, I know we know this. The 49ers, or excuse me, the Cardinals have too much going against them this season. They're in shambles. And for the 49ers, there's simply too much riding on this game to lose it. The 49ers have the opportunity to jump Seattle in the NFC West standings. They can go to first place with a win tonight in the NFC West, and they can just they can go all the way to third in the NFC conference with a win tonight. Those are huge implications for this game. If they lose, they're down to 8, which is tricky territory to be in for this team, who, quite frankly, they've been clawing their way to the dance to try to get to the playoffs and in that conversation, right? And so they need this win to stay in that conversation. A loss would, definitely hurt those chances. So for a team as talented as this and that is in control of their own destiny, there is no reason this team should lose tonight under the bright lights in prime time with everyone watching. The defense needs to stop the Cardinals' run game first and then put pressure on Colt McCoy. That will come later if they stop James Conner first. That comes first. Secondary also needs to cover off of the line and not give McCoy any easy and quick completions, because that's what he's going to try to do. He got rid of the ball in 2.16 seconds last week against the Rams. That is part of the reason why he was so efficient, why he was so hard to defend. And that makes it tough for a defensive line to get to the quarterback, right? When he's getting rid of the ball really quickly. And so as best as they can, the 49ers are going to need to cover at least, off the line and make those quick throws very difficult or impossible to make. Okay. And that should also help their chances of being able to put pressure on Colt McCoy. On the other end, the offense simply just needs to score points. I mean, I released my offense preview episode a few days ago. So if you guys haven't watched that, go ahead, check that out on my channel. But they need to score points. And to me, they've been trending in the right direction, but I feel like we have yet to see them impose their will on an opponent where it's like undeniable that this offense can be clicking on all cylinders. We've seen glimpses of it, and like I said, they're trending in the right direction. But I feel like this is a game against this Cardinals defense where they can just go all out and show everyone that they're a contending team and they're a team that nobody wants to face in the playoffs. And again, like on the offense, they need to be able to sustain drives, not just score points, but also keep drives going for 10 plays or more, a few minutes or more, because with the high altitude, you need to be able to keep the defense fresh. That was one thing in the Denver game that was a huge issue because the offense was not doing anything. And the defense by the end of the game was so gassed that they weren't even able to really defend anymore. That's how the Broncos, to me, that was one of the big reasons why they won that game. But yeah, they got to be able to keep the defense fresh and off the field. My prediction for this game is 26-13. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if the margin was way higher than that. The 49ers could potentially even score up to 30. But they have to do it. Like, we know that they have the potential. They just have to do it. They have to show us finally that they can do it and they could score points. So I think the 49ers win this one handedly. They should. They're, like I said, they're the more talented team. They have everything going for them. They just have to actually be able to execute that. So I feel good about this matchup. And yeah, I'll take some of your comments now. Let's see. RJ says, "Hey, Steph, I expect our defense to show up. I really hope that Kyle is in his bag this game. This would be the perfect time for the 49ers to get on track. Everyone is watching." My exact thoughts. I mean, yes, the defense, I'm not worried about the defense. I already know that they'll look better than they did the last time that they played the Cardinals, just off the fact that the secondary is completely different. It's an actual NFL secondary. No offense to Drake Kirkpatrick or Josh Norman. But yeah, Kyle needs to be in his bag for this one. And like I said, they've been trending in the right direction, but you have to just be able to score points and execute. And sometimes that falls on the players, right? Because Brandon Ayuk could have had a touchdown last week that he dropped, and Elijah Mitchell fell and slipped right before he probably would have gotten in the end zone. And so things like that changes our entire perception of this offense and how many points they're scoring, things like that. So they're right there. They're right there. They're on the cusp of something, and they just need to go out and do it. So Yes, I would expect that they have a better game. The offense does. And I agree. This is the perfect time to do it because everyone's going to be watching, NFL players included. And this is a perfect time to put the league on notice that you are a serious contending team. There are a lot of teams with really good records that have been kind of falling apart lately. Like the seams are I don't know the phrase, but like they're starting to fall apart. The Vikings lost to the Cowboys pretty badly. The Eagles won, so they're 9-1, I believe, but they lost or they won by 1 point to the Colts. So I feel like we're starting to see some teams are starting to get exposed a little bit. And so on the other end, though, the 49ers are kind of on their way up. They're ascending. So, yes, this is a perfect opportunity to show everyone that you are a serious team, that you are a team to be feared on, Monday Night Football when everyone's watching. What's going on, Melissa? Glad you can make it. Ronnie asks, Steph, how many sacks the team going to get tonight? Whew, well, that's tough. I'm not gonna like overestimate just because I do feel like the Cardinals will have some early success with getting the ball out quickly, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the first half we see the Cardinals offense look not better, but I think they're gonna get that ball out quick. It'll be harder for the defense to get to Colt. But I do think, as we've seen the last couple of games, D'Amico Ryan's going to make some hell of an adjustment at halftime, and it's going to be a whole different ball game. I would say 2 to 3 sacks from the defense tonight, which I think is a pretty decent number, all things considered. I think Nick Bosa is going to have a sack tonight. I don't know about you guys, but I think he's going to get another sack of Rooney. So. Yeah, I feel good about this game. I don't know about you guys, but I hope I made you guys feel a little bit better, especially the the a cautious tweet that I showed of the secondary. This one just yeah, I feel good. I feel good because this defense is very talented at the moment, even with all the injuries that they've sustained. Credit to D'Amico Ryans for keeping this unit afloat. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, make sure you like this video. Make sure you guys subscribe if you have not yet. And yeah, appreciate all the love. We're going to be monetizing on this very soon, so I appreciate it. All right. Have a good rest of your night, guys, and make sure you enjoy that game. I'm going to be going live right after the game for the instant reaction, so you guys will be seeing my face twice today. You're welcome. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.